Welcome to the Screen Time Continuum. It is a wonderful Wednesday here, and we are here to give you a new review. My name is Keelan, and I am here with Nick. What's going on, brother?
Hey man, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday. It is a weatherful week for us on this side. Glad we can have services to do these things. I wanted to say at the top of this, I can appreciate technology in 2023 because I don't know if we could have been through the weather systems that America's experiencing right now in, say, 1994 and still probably get a landline call in at that point.
You don't remember the El Nino in '94?
I do. That's my point.
Okay.
I remember certain people's
Yeah,
landlines going down.
fair enough.
But yeah, I wanted to just mention that at the top. Some different stuff, some nostalgia things that take you back, but some people might ask, why did you bring that up? And I don't know, for whatever reason, I feel like that's really in tow with today's film, which is Neon Lights. Neon Lights is a 2022 movie that is directed by Rosbe Hadari. And it has a cast of 8 people. So it's really a small cast, which I'm not, I tend to like. So yeah. It is starring Kim Coates, Brina Coates, excuse me, Erica Swayze, Dana Abraham, Lauren Howe, Britt McCrae, Renee Escobar Jr., and Stephen Tracy. This movie again was released in 2022. It's currently available for view on YouTube, on Netflix with subscription, and on YouTube, Google, Apple, and pretty much every other site for whatever their rental fee is. I know everybody's vary, but on average about $4. Uh, the Google plot or synopsis for this movie is listed and says, guests began disappearing at an off-the-grid location during a family reunion of misfit siblings. IMDb says that a tech tycoon, Clay Amani, retreats to an off-the-grid location in search of meaning and peace with disconnected siblings and their offspring, which was weird the way they phrased that to me, and their offspring, only to be caught in a bone-chilling killing spree within his new estate. Yeah, I think you put both of those together. But I say that to say this, Nick. What are your first impressions of the Neon Lights movie?
It doesn't matter.
Now, is it A Rock Doesn't Matter?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Or is
I'm
it
sorry. It doesn't matter. I forgot. I got to make sure I go at the end of every sentence I do because I'm disturbed. Because that's what you do when you're a disturbed individual. You go at the end of every sentence. Yeah, this movie was really bad. It was poorly acted. The story was a jumbled mess of like the Joker meets Dr. and Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and then also some level of Inception as well. I don't think it does any of it well. I think that for a movie named Neon Lights, it's made me dislike neon lighting. I didn't know that was possible because I love neon lights. But for the oversaturation of the use of neon lights in cinema, I think this movie has effectively killed that. And we might need a break from neon lighting in cinema for, I'd say, 5 to 10 years before it can be cool again. And it's all because of this movie. So
I love that first take. Yeah, then I don't know. I didn't. Right, that was annoying. I wasn't as bothered by the neon lights, but I noted that they were excessive. I can't say they bothered me. It wasn't something that I kept like, ugh, here we go, more lights. But I can say that every time I was like, I don't know if I would have went with that styling choice. And I mean, every time I felt that way about the neon lights.
yeah.
At a point, honestly, I was asking myself, why is this movie called Neon Lights again?
For the only reason that the director liked to film everything in neon colors, which doesn't really work when you have really dark shadows and then really bright neon lights. You don't get to see any details, which I guess is fine for silhouette shots, but I don't know. This movie made me dislike the use of
The use
neon.
of- I can
So
understand.
yeah,
Again, I get it. Can't say I share the sentiment, but only
yeah, I
because
get you.
I have a penchant to be able to tune certain things out. I think I've learned that about myself through a lot of our reviews. I'll get annoyed with something. I've said it before. I get annoyed with something and then it just kind of disappears from my view, which is a little weird, but it's who I am.
Yeah, what do you think, man?
That's what I was actually sitting here thinking. I was like, what are my first impressions? My first impressions are this was wildly confusing. Like, you might think you know what's going on, you don't. You don't. And then you do, and you did the whole time.
But then you
And it
don't
makes you
again.
feel like I sound right now. Right.
Yeah,
Right. And then you don't again. And it makes you feel like I sound right now, totally confused. Um, I can't
and
say
not
I
in the
dis
good way.
right. Not confused in a good way, like, oh man, like didn't see that coming confused. Like, no, like, so why
Hmm.
confused? Yeah. Or what was the point? Like just things weren't wasn't enough fleshing out of certain things. And we were supposed to piece it together. Now I do think I pieced it together, but we'll get into that after I get out of my first impressions. Um, and really to round off my first impressions, I did like Dana Abraham's performance, honestly. But that doesn't mean that
Who
I
who's
think
that?
actually I'll say that. I think this is one of the cases that the acting wasn't as bad as maybe the material was.
Hmm. I mean, I'm gonna have to virulently disagree with you on that,
I
but
understand.
I understand where you're coming from for
Yeah,
sure.
I understand, but
Yeah.
I think what I'm giving them is the benefit of the doubt on the acting side rather than as
Hmm.
we usually do on the writing side. It's like, man, they
Right.
probably wrote something really decent, or they had the opportunity and couldn't flesh it out because of the factory, basically, or the company. But I'm thinking in this situation, and maybe just because I liked Dana Abraham's performance specifically, I'm not sure what more did he have to go with. Now the giggling thing, I don't know, confused. But so yeah, first impressions again, wrapping it up. I didn't dislike this movie. I am very interested to discuss it. However, it's deep, but it shouldn't be this deep.
I don't know if it is, but we can
It
we can
probably isn't.
dig. We can
Yeah,
dig and see. We'll dig and
yeah.
see.
And I also want to say this is that's the end of my first impression. Then I'll read what Corey said. Um, but I do want to say we know that I have a knack, and for whatever reason, we know I do it. I give so much leeway because I use my creative mind to say, oh, this is what they meant here. And it's like, they didn't do that much work. So I'll say that at the top.
Hmm.
Corey says here, what's up, Corey? Thanks for joining us.
Yeah,
Corey says
thanks, Corey.
here, I really have no idea what was trying to be communicated by this film. Psychosis is a mug. I don't know if the director knows I don't know if the director knows what's going on either. That is a
No,
great point. Yeah, I don't think the director knows what's going on. I think there's only one person in this movie that knows what's going on, and it's Blair because she's watching from the sidelines.
I
But
don't know if she even exists. Does Blair
I don't
exist?
know if it. Oh wait, yeah, because I'm
Yeah,
about to jump too deep into my theory right now.
right.
All right, so let's start with. Oh, I'm sorry. This was supposed to be literally my only thing. I wrote down what my first impression was supposed to be. Let's redo my first impression. My first impression. This is a drug-induced fever dream. End of my first impression. Um.
You gotta do that at every time, man.
This is a drug-induced fever dream.
Yep. There you go. There you go. I was hoping that he would do the Mickey Mouse. It'd be like, ha ha, at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, he gave a few variations, but he never gave us that one.
Mm-mm.
So we learned about Clay Amani. Clay Amani is the CEO of Tempest, and we see him talking, excuse me, with Denver before he takes an interview as he's talking about being able to keep his company Tempest and run the company, which is the family company. But we don't exactly know what that means at this time, and it doesn't, it just makes him sound crazy, right? Um, and he can't keep his shit together. He's getting interviewed. He's being asked some tough questions because he's the CEO of uh, a well, it's not a marketing firm. It's a software firm,
Is he
like
though?
basically Apple.
Is he?
That's a good question. That's a very fair question. But they told us
There's nothing to
that it was
suggest that.
a software or tech firm of some sort. I'm just going by what they told us. Yeah, there's no proof.
Sure. Yeah,
He
there's
doesn't
no
even live
proof.
in like some fancy high tech house. His house is very low tech for a tech CEO.
It's
It's
not
weird.
even his house.
Oh crap! Yeah, wait, you're jumping the gun. But yes,
I'm not. I can't. I mean,
yeah,
like, we can't lay a
he's not just
foundation
something.
that they didn't even give us. So you
Damn, you're
can't be
right.
like, oh, he's the
You're right.
CEO. He's a no. We don't know.
Yeah, we start. So
The
yeah, how about
movie
that? I'll
tells
start it
us
that way.
that.
We start mid discussion of Denver and Clay, and immediately I'm thinking, who the hell is Denver? And then Anna walks in, and I'm thinking, where the hell did Denver? So Denver's not real. Okay, got that. Like scene two, it was there
Right.
already. I knew immediately. Now I questioned it probably until about scene six, scene seven, but immediately it was obvious. Corey says here, was the interview real? The interviewer was another patient. He sees the therapist at the end. Yes, she
Yes.
was at the end
Right.
as a therapist.
So no, the interview wasn't real either.
No, I don't. So, okay. So let me put my notes down, actually. I just realized what we're doing here. Because, yeah, I'm not going to do that. Let's do this.
Yeah.
This movie is exactly this. Clay is a guy who is I don't think he's schizophrenic. He's not. I don't even think he's as troubled as he comes off as in this movie. I think this dude just has some deep family shit that just recently happened. His doctor drugs him and sends him into this fever dream so that he can go through what's been going on with him. And he's just had a deeply troubled past that he ran from, and he successfully ran from. And then he was forced to deal with it, and they turned that shit into a movie.
Yeah, but see, this is the problem with this movie is that won't even let it won't even let you stick to that because at the last scene it erases that assumption completely as well. Because you see Kim Coates in the car
Damn, you're
as the
right. As the
driver.
driver.
Right. So it's not like we can't even make the
Right. I'm so
assumption that
confused.
he's
Oh, I
just a
didn't get
dude
that.
that went through some trauma, because the movie doesn't want you to make any assumptions, apparently. It doesn't want you to know. I think we
Right.
can just
Well,
conclude that it doesn't want us to know
right. I
what's
think
going on.
they could have really just made it clear at some point that what we're watching is, and I think it comes through, but it hardly comes through. Like you really have to work for it. And this is really what my theory is. My theory is when she sends him into this fever dream, what we're witnessing is him having the fantasy or the vision in his head, the delusion almost of what happened when his father killed the family. For whatever reason, he has to act this entire thing out in his head to get through and over it, which sounds beyond psychopathic. Um, and that's what we're watching is his imaginary version of what happened in that house.
Hmm. I think that that's probably fair enough. Although it doesn't seem like it's his family's house. It's like his house.
Well, we find out it's the therapist's office or the building that they're in to begin with. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
you're
gotcha.
right. And I'm thinking
Um,
that's really what like he's like. And thank you, Corey, for even doing that because Corey's right. It comes down to I think where it's like, no, none of this might be real, or like I just said, none of this is real. He's in a fever dream. When she gives him the spoon swirl and the tap tap, like we're back in Get Out, and I was like, I wonder if Jordan got paid for that. I really thought that in my head. But once they
that's
do that,
mushroom tea.
well, I was wondering. I'm like, is it shrooms or ayahuasca?
Probably,
Because he didn't
maybe
vomit.
ayahuasca.
I'm thinking it's shrooms.
Yeah, probably.
Um, Corey says, so my take is his adopted family and father and family were real at some point. Yes, his dad did the whole murder suicide thing. Yep, and he's being treated with super experimental drugs to treat and heal his trauma. Yes,
That's
yes.
probably as
At the
solid
end, we see
as we
the
can say.
yeah, no. At the end, we see that the therapist has a placard for helping heal patients with an experimental treatment.
Right.
And so that leads us to even think that, right, like you just alluded to, Nick, he's not a tech genius. None of that part is true. The only thing that's true as far as his family and the money and all of that is that his father was a media guy, or his stepfather or adoptive father was this super media billionaire. But as far as him being a tech genius and being this super renowned person, no, he was taking on the success of his therapist because he's read that article that many times because he's always in her office.
Hmm.
So yeah, no, absolutely. And even I just now, as we're talking about it, or as I'm talking about it, I'm just now realizing, whoa, he wasn't a tech genius. He was being treated with an experimental drug. That part I realized, but he's not a tech genius. That's the person who is the world renowned genius, his therapist, not him.
So what is it? Why is he also a Patrick Bateman-esque psychopath?
I'm not exactly sure. Patrick Bateman would be.
American Psycho.
I thought so. Okay.
Yeah, like the
Um,
fantasizing about the killing stuff. Like clearly does want to kill
I
his
think
siblings.
right. I think that is to throw us off to kind of reiterate that he's kind of lost it. But that's when you have to realize that he, at some point, he continues to say, "If I at the near the end, he starts talking about if I were there, I could have saved them. I should have been there. I should have been there. If I were there, I could have saved them." And this whole thing about being a man, this whole reoccurring theme of him being weak and being not being a man. And I realized that what plausibly happened, adoptive father kind of cast everybody to the side, but at some point he calls the whole family to the estate because he wants to have a family week or a family weekend. You know, the kind of stuff we hear that people on that level do. And what he ends up doing is he kills his entire family, the murder suicide thing that Corey just alluded to. Well, the movie alludes to, but and because he didn't go to that, that's where the trauma inset. Because he didn't show up, he survived, and nobody else did, including what possibly was his love child.
Man, I really like that your analysis there, but I think you're making stretches that the movie doesn't account
I
for.
told you, yeah,
You
it's me.
know,
It's
I know you do that all the time.
I gotta start writing this stuff down because clearly I'm doing a good job and they are not.
Yeah, because there's really no explanation for any of that. I think what you're saying makes sense though, for
Mhm.
sure. As far as the story goes, I just don't think that the movie really took the time to
It didn't.
make that obvious.
Nope. The movie
Yeah.
gave him some drugs, sat him on a couch, and told us he was crazy. And then we find out that he's not crazy. He feels guilty for, or we conclude he possibly just feels guilty for not being there. If nothing else, for not being able to save his brothers, but at least hell, if they're gonna go, take me with
Corey says that he might have inherited his wealth, which is why he might be a rich billionaire.
them. And I think
Because yeah,
that is a
now
good
he's got all the
point.
money. Yeah.
Right. That is a good point. There was something that made me think that, but it never came full circle. It was near the beginning, I believe. But no, it can't prove that was real. So yeah, never mind. You can't prove none of this was real.
None of
Because
it's real.
even you think of when Benny goes upstairs, Benny finds the box full of the death certificates for everybody, and I'm thinking to myself, how is Benny find like Benny finds James' death certificate? I'm like, okay. Then he finds
His
Denver's
own.
death certificate. Then he finds the money that's going to Clarissa. Then he finds his own.
Right.
And when he finds it, I knew his was coming because he just kept going. I'm like, oh, he's gonna find his own. And then after he finds his own, you see this paper fold out, and it's talking about this genius who killed his family, or this mogul who kills their family, but we don't see the picture. And that's when we find out later. That's literally one of the last things we see in the movie.
So what if being drowned by the nurse was actually really him? What if brain dead him is actually him, and he was stuck in his own mind, and the only thing that
Yeah,
we actually see is him being drowned by his nurse?
I I don't know.
Because that would tie into the whole thing of like he sent money to the
I think that was a flash
sister-in-law.
forward.
Yeah.
Right. No,
Flash
I get
forward to
exactly what you're
what?
saying. I get exactly what you're saying. I think that was a flash forward to if it were playing out in his head the way he's playing it out, the way that he's making this story, right? The way it would play out, like why he feels guilty. So of course his subconscious is going to kick in. He was attracted to his brother's wife. I believe he possibly that Blair is
Is she
his.
the only woman in the world? Because apparently the other brother
She's the
was
only woman in
attracted
this
to her
family.
as well.
She's definitely the only woman in this family. I don't know
Did we
why.
also mention the fact that the acting with the brothers was awful?
The brothers
I
were
didn't,
terrible. They were bad actors.
just
Oh
not
no,
good.
sorry. I'm sorry. That was rude. This was a bad acting performance.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
fine.
because I don't know what their other work is. I might see something that they're amazing in. In this, they were, and no bad acting performance, but their point got across, and I think that is maybe the second or third time I've ever said that, where I didn't too much care for the acting, but the character portrayal that they were trying to get, oh, that came across. Oh,
Well,
you were
it was
trying to be an
over.
asshole.
Yes, it was very overt, and I think that that's probably one of my critiques about the movie is that all of the acting performances are very
Over
over
the
the
top.
top. Yeah,
Yeah.
over the top acting in all aspects. Um, and that's kind of a shame because the subtle nuances of like, somebody that's actually suffering from something like this whole
Yeah.
slouching and being super aggro and then creepy and then the giggling over and over like you're the Joker, like you're Joaquin Phoenix. I don't know. It didn't do it for me.
If they had showed he had a level of drug use as well, I think that would have helped push his story forward a little bit. Like, oh, okay, we already could tell he's coping, but he's coping the wrong ways. If he were doing something like that, the way
Hmm.
they make it seem like he's coping in all the right ways,
All right.
but do want to make him seem like he's the bad guy too. Corey says, well, it may have been deliberately grotesque for subversion purposes, hiding the survivor guilt twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they can't put
Like
that
they
out
were
first.
purposely making him look like he was a psychopathic, like,
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. They
creepy
can't. Yeah.
creepo, just to hide the fact that, oh no, it was actually just a therapy
Well,
exercise.
because I don't think I didn't really see that last thing that Corey said, but because they can't.
So
Okay,
too.
listen. This is what they can't outright come. It was ugly to watch, to be sure. Oh yeah, for sure. This is what they couldn't say about this movie, and one of the points they tried to make in this movie: being wary of adoptive parents because everybody's not the right person, no matter how successful they are. And I think it was a clear shot at celebrities who adopt
I mean,
kids.
I would beg to differ. His dad really loved him. He was his favorite. Obviously, he's the one that got left alive
Aside from the rest of the story,
and haunted him for the rest of his life.
yeah,
I
that's what
don't
I'm saying.
know.
Aside from the rest of the story. And but yeah, it's a it's a tip to, and like you just like even thinking about, so if he is the inheritor of all of the funds and all of the company and everything, right? So that means he was also raised as a rich kid, right? Because he was adopted at 4.
I mean, you would assume so. Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
because you have the brother James talks about rags to riches for real, and it's like, but your dad was a media mogul. Make that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't
I don't
really
know if
understand.
they like see, I think that there's certain things that you can be like you can build a scaffolding of ambiguity and then like once you get to the third act of your movie, you can solidify everything in a manner that makes it look like it was all intentional in the first place when it wasn't.
That's a good
And I think that that's what this movie is kind of doing. It's like they created a scaffolding of the story and where the story would go, but by the third act, they didn't really have like 100% of like a good cathartic resolution to the whole thing. So they just decided we're going to frame it this way and then act like everything else was intentional. And I just don't know if that's 100% true.
yeah, like you
I
don't know,
feel like
and I get that.
it's like a look. What is it called? Like pareidolia, where you see dots connect that don't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. That's possible, and I honestly believe I watch movies that way. I was taught how to. Never mind. I could watch a movie and listen to an album at the same time, so I get it. Um,
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that it doesn't need to be 100% obvious. Like, I don't need it to tell me exactly what's going on. That's for sure. But
mhm.
it does feel a little bit like, oh, well, that's convenient.
Right. Well, no, that's what I mean. Is the reason I say that I could I could watch a movie and listen to an album at the same time. These are two things that are well fleshed out bodies of work. They're chronological already. They're set up the way they're supposed to be. Or in some situations where albums are not chronological because you're supposed to listen to it in a scattered manner. But my point is, they're put together to where it's already organized when it's given to you, right?
Hmm.
Versus a movie like this where it's so scattered, it's like if you were to do something else while you're watching this, you would miss something. There was a moment where I had looked down to write a note. Clarissa had walked out to the door when she was looking for Benny, but then she had saw the purple light. I looked down to write a note. I looked up. I did not see her see the purple light. I just saw her walking with a bottle of tequila, and I'm like,
Oh, same.
knew for a
Yeah.
fact I was like, I
I
missed something.
actually missed that spot exactly too, because I
Mhm.
thought that that was such a harsh cut when she's stumbling down the hill.
It for sure was.
Yeah.
It for sure was. So it's like those kind of moments in this movie where it's like I couldn't be doing anything too consuming, or
Mhm.
else I was easily gonna miss. Well, hell, I guess at this getting to the end, you realize it didn't really matter what you miss. But in the moment, you're thinking like, "Oh, I don't want to miss anything because there's a lot of weaving parts here."
Right.
There
Right.
weren't many weaving parts.
I think there's just an illusion of many weaving parts.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah. All right. Corey says here, I don't think the drug treatment psychopharmacology is going to work in the plot of the movie because I don't think the hallucinations of his father are something he's addressing with the therapist. I don't think so either.
Right.
I think the only thing he's told her is about the past, the traumatic experiences. That is a great point out, Corey. I don't think he's let his therapist know that he is having severe hallucinations, like debilitating hallucinations.
Mhm.
Which I think at in his position he would be committed. Corey also says, I think that's supposed to be the horror aspect, like the father's insanity is going to live on now. Yeah, I
Right.
think so. A theory also I had was that the father had abused and did these terrible things and killed the brothers, or excuse me, had abused and did these terrible things to the brothers, and that Clay at some point, this I forgot what point of the movie I was thinking, so it was fairly early. It was before even the porch scene where he sat talked to Blair, but that he had went and killed his father, and that because his father was such a bad person, the memory of this terrible person just got trapped in his brain, and it created a
Yeah.
psycho event, a psychotic event.
I mean, like, that's another option, right? Is
Psychosis.
that he actually did kill all of his family and he just has his the ghost of his father sort of
Right,
haunting him
haunting
now.
him. That
Yeah.
I honestly think that would have been better than how they ended it. That was kind of like, yo, this is nuts.
Yeah. Again, very ambiguous, which I guess isn't terrible. I don't need everything spelled out at the end, anyways, but it does leave me wondering what the hell I just watched.
Oh yeah, we just watched 3 episodes of a series and it got canceled before they got to number 4.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like this the psychoscape idea of the psychoscape, and like everybody really is into how to portray that. And we've seen a lot of franchises try to do that type of thing. Um, it's
Well, Lambda.
very difficult. It's very difficult to do in a way that makes you understand things intuitively, because when you're working with like a psycho framework for the movie, you need to have visual cues. That's what the neon lights are all about. It's
Yeah,
all about those neon lights and the visual cues of the lights.
how he viewed them.
Um, right, right. And but I think that something like Legion does this a little bit better.
You love that
Um,
show.
I do, because it's like actually, well, season one. Season one is really
Yeah.
good in the sort of diving into the same topic of like you're questioning the sanity of the character as you're watching as well. And it leaves a lot open to be interpreted, but then at the end gives you a little bit more to understand about what's going on.
Right.
And I think I would have liked a little bit more to understand about what was going on here,
Mhm.
um, or even some shading beyond the very superficial explanation of who the hell Clay is. Because at some point, I just kept thinking, like, why are we even following this guy?
Right. Well, so at one point, I started thinking that the reason we were introduced to Clay first is because he was the least volatile, and that all 3 brothers had some level of hormone imbalance. Uh,
Uh-oh. I think either I froze or Keelan has frozen. It's one of us, and I think the wind blew the Wi-Fi away.
no.
Oh, can you hear me?
Are we? There we go.
Okay.
All right. So my
Sorry
theory,
about
one of
that.
my other theories was no. You know what? It's the weather that I was giving compliments on not knocking out our connections and towers, and it hurt me. It
That's
was
what
like,
we get.
right. It was like, yeah, you mentioned me.
Yeah.
No, sorry. But yeah. So my theory, one of my theories was that all 3 brothers were in some way they had a hormone imbalance, and that Clay's talent for tech is what saved him. And that's how he got out of, the home away from the dad. He didn't turn into the person that they turned into, because they're basically the same damn person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then of course we find out a little bit later, like, yeah, they all are a little mentally imbalanced. And because they were not only adopted by this one person, they were adopted and abused by this person, and not told, apparently, because they never really talked about him telling each other that they were better than one another, but shown that they were better than each other in different ways.
I think it also, this movie is kind of like, again, this feels a little bit like a cop out, the revelation that Kim Coates is the father, because there's really no mention of the father,
Nope.
not once, until this revelation, and it's like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
I guess he's the father. That's fine, but you could have like had any of the children mention him in order to
Denver or something,
foreshadow or something a little bit. You got more comments here.
All right. Corey also says that's somewhat left in the air. Did Clay actually stage the whole murder suicide thing himself? Did he come in the aftermath and kill the father? And you're right. All of that is not clear. This is more, and that's why I had to leave it at, this is a drug-induced fever dream. This is just the imaginary scenario put together by Clay's brain. Corey also says, or was he just never there, and it's all survivor's guilt and regret, as is the most straightforward interpretation, in my opinion. Yeah, mine says, well. To me, when you get to the end, that's the best I can come up with without.
Yeah, it's the only one that has any evidence.
Yeah.
All the other ideas are just speculation at this point.
And it cuts short the final scene with the therapist.
Mm-hmm.
In reality, if we were to go with the other side of it, we'd have to cut short the final scene with the therapist. With that, yeah.
Well, I think that there is also a little bit of like, and I guess it's because, you can use the excuse of like, oh, this is just in the psychoscape, but they were playing fast and loose with Kim Coates' character about who could see him and who couldn't. And I thought that was kind of cheap, because you weren't playing by any set of rules with that. Why would he be seen by some people and then not others, and then be able to disappear and reappear and all of that stuff?
Well, specifically only the women.
And why wouldn't they recognize him?
Clarissa. I feel like they did recognize him.
Like, wouldn't the girl be like, "Aren't you my grandpa?" Or the
Oh, no. I'm sorry. You mean recognize him as Kim Coates, or excuse me, as Kim Coates. As Denver. No, I believe. No, I'm sorry.
He talks to his granddaughter.
No, right. So let me clarify. When it's Clarissa, I believe that was Clay, right? And he just had a different character, like charisma about him. She was a whore. She would have slept with all three brothers. I really believe that. Like, nothing in this movie makes me think. Actually, I think she did sleep with all three brothers the way this movie makes me think. The past that James makes at her makes me think that something happened there at one point with Benny, and I think that's Clay's kid. So I actually do think she slept with all three brothers when I think about it. But what was my point on? Oh, when Blair meets Denver, yeah, I didn't get it. That's what made me think, like, is the hormone imbalance hereditary?
And I just don't understand why avatars of your own mindscape would not recognize Denver, and then recognize Denver sometimes.
Yeah,
if he looks like the father, which he does, which is in the newspaper, we confirm that Kim Coates looks like the father. It's not some other looking thing.
Yes.
Why wouldn't they recognize him as a father? I mean, because it's just his avatars, and they don't. I'm guessing so. They're just NPCs.
Or maybe when they were trying to say that Clay, that scene where they were saying that Clay abandoned them, maybe it was after he actually became successful as a media mogul that Denver abandoned the kids.
Yeah, Corey's got another one.
Corey says, you have to shift perspective and take Clay out and readjust his reality so that all their responses were actually to their father, but modified by Clay's psychosis. I wish I could put an emoji right now. You know that emoji. You just did
My
that.
brains are scrambled eggs.
You just did that one to me.
Yeah, no,
But yeah, I could see that.
I could see that too, right? You know, you're playing out the trauma of the father killing these people.
That
Um,
attributes to the first version of our
yeah,
development discussion.
it's Clay's simulation of it, so it's not going
Yeah,
to be 100% to
accurate.
reality and accurate, which I
Which is
guess is
kind of how
fine.
I yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. If that's what we're running with, because he wasn't there, so this has to be his imagination, which is really how where I started this at the top of the discussion. We have to start it immediately at recognizing he's given drugs, and then he's led off into his imagination to kind of inform her on what's going on in his head about the information he has, because he wasn't there,
Right.
unless he was there,
Right.
but that's not.
Again, I could think that it's a little just attached a tad too convenient. Because then you can just say, well, everything that's sort of a sort of plot flaw
Mhm.
is because it's through
Yes.
the simulation of his mind. I don't know.
Right. Well, so back to when the nurse drowns him, I think that's a flash forward again. Reason being, couple of reasons. One, Clarissa talks about Blair getting married, that she's about to walk down the altar. She had to get her dress refitted, blah, blah, blah. Um, they both have gray hair. At this point, he's tried to take himself out. We never see any inference or instance of that at any point. Um, there was one other thing that made me think it was a
But
flash.
was it that he was a danger to others?
Right. That was made me think it was a flash forward. When she said the nurse was like, "Oh, you know, he's a danger to others," and she's like, "The guy who's not able to like what? Like he was in I forgot what is in coma or whatever. I can't remember." But when she said
Yeah.
that, and I kind of started thinking it, I'm like, "Huh? Maybe he was never like." It goes to what you said a minute ago. Maybe he was always kind of lobotomized, and this was all just up here the whole time. One of those moments where the plot points don't add up, and you're like, "So is this a flash forward? Did this really happen? Is this his imagination?" Fever dream.
Well, it's the same. The nurse is the same woman who's the
Not the
other.
no, the nurse. I'm sorry, the doctor. The doctor is who said that about at first.
Oh yeah, well, the nurse who drowns him is the
Yeah,
same woman that's the interviewer, and then the next person in the
hmm
session.
in
So
session, right?
yeah,
Who was
uh,
still wearing scrubs, so maybe she really was a nurse. I don't know. I don't know. If she was
yeah,
wearing scrubs. She was wearing.
yeah. It's all in his head. Everything's in his head. So yeah, except for the fact that he hallucinates his father. That's real,
Apparently,
apparently.
apparently. And why did we never see the servants or the chef? Like, who was cooking his food? Oh wait, he's in
It's
his
not in it. Exactly. We don't need to ask any more questions. It's in his head. Done. We're done.
even and even
Answers all questions.
right, and even his brothers were questioning that in his head, which is like, bro, now get out of your own head.
Corey. Exactly. Unless the end scene is another dream. We're just in another dream. We're in
And
his
that's
head,
where
in his head.
right, that's where we get back to Nick's
Yeah.
theory of maybe he was just lobotomized the entire time, and the
Yes.
version of him drowning was the real him.
Yes. And he's just been trapped in his mind for a long time.
Jeez. I know. Yeah, I guess we just got all the way back to square A. What are we talking about here? Dinner's at 5, don't be late. But yeah. So even thinking right now, readdressing his mannerisms, maybe he wasn't himself and he was his father in his fever state. I'm calling it that. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a hallucination. That was a fever state.
Yeah, or I mean, well,
Or it was all
technically, it was a guided therapy where the therapist
oh, was
instructed
it
him
true?
on how to kill the people that hurt him.
There was a moment, right? There was a few moments in it where I was curious to whether or not she was a real therapist. Was
Oh,
she a shaman or something?
well, she's sitting there with the dad at one point
She's sitting
when
there
he
as the
axes
dad.
the dad. Yeah, I
Yeah,
don't
like they
know.
fade in and out of the same face. That ain't no
Right.
sitting next to.
Um, But it's all in his head. So again, I
Yeah.
can't get upset. Just
And
have
the only
to
thing I can
accept
really
it.
leave this movie with is they make it seem like, and it's I don't know, but it just almost comes off as all of this trauma is simply because they were adopted by the wrong person, and it's like, so is this a shot at adoption?
I don't think it's a shot at anything, man. I
It's
really don't.
a shot
I
at a
think
check.
maybe. Um, I saw some Nepo names in there, so it's quite possible that this was a Nepo project. So
Fair, fair. That was probably the first thing I noticed the moment I chose it. After I chose it, and then I looked through the credits and stuff, I was like, oh, that's interesting.
mhm.
Um, Corey says or asks, so the point again, I'm confused about what they're trying to communicate. Like you said, adoption, bad. Family, bad. Yeah, those are the messages they're sending. Toxic masculinity, where everyone wants to sleep with the blonde. Ugh, what? Yeah. I don't even know if we're gonna call that toxic masculinity. We're just gonna call that toxic and nasty.
I think we're just going to call that poor character building because honestly, they're just a caricature. But hey, that's okay because they can be shittily written characters because it's just a figment of this guy's imagination. So they don't have to actually be fully fleshed characters. See how convenient this is? I
Oh
can write a
yeah.
shitty story as much as I want, and it's all just in his head.
All
So
right,
don't
I
don't
gotta
worry
say
about
it. I gotta say it. Damn, that's hilarious.
it.
Everybody is hilarious. Everybody's so creative. Um, man, sorry,
No,
but
it's
yeah,
okay. Green is not a creative color, though. Just so you know.
yeah, they really ruined you with those lights, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, the neon lights really got me. It's flashes of MK Ultra going on. Um,
That's okay. We'll do that, and then we can highlight the rest and be done. I thought that's what was going on at a certain point with the
mm,
once like again the whole spoon thing and the tapping of the spoon. I thought about that on and off through the entire movie. Like, where's the significance? And then I kept remembering. Oh yeah, she has him sitting on the couch under drug, having a fever dream. Because I
yeah.
came to the conclusion that this was a drug induced fever dream really early in the movie. Yeah. So yeah,
Green
MK
Lantern
Ultra
says
for sure.
green is the color of will. Well, I'm telling you, don't hug me. I'm scared. Says green is not a creative color. And if you haven't seen that, you should go check it out on YouTube. It's very good.
Says the color will. I don't know. But yeah. So any other thoughts? Any
No, I mean, I enjoyed actually talking with you guys about it more than watching the movie, which is
I thought it would be
interesting.
a really good movie to talk about, whether
Mhm.
anyone liked the movie or not. And I thought that from the trailer that could be a really good discussion movie.
Sure.
And it
The
definitely is that.
intentions, for sure. I still am sticking with that it was poorly acted, in my opinion, and that maybe the story could have been refined some in order for it to be a bigger reveal and a bigger punch.
Mhm.
Because basically you're waiting for the revelation the entire movie, and then
Yeah.
by the time it gets there, you're like, yeah, okay. Anything else?
Right.
Like
One of the things I was waiting on was a little more Kim Coates.
Yeah, weird that he had. I for a second I thought it was like an alter ego, like a Jekyll Hyde thing, and I'm
That's what
like,
I thought.
why did this guy imagine Kim Coates as his
I thought it was going to
shadow
be a
self?
moon. I thought we were finally going to get the Moon Knight movie.
Oh right, yeah, that felt like a little bit, yeah.
Um, but yeah, my final thoughts. Didn't dislike it. Again, I personally like Dana Abraham's performance. I wanted more Kim Coates for his performance, but can't say I hated it. I could watch this again. I don't know if I want to, but I could watch this again. If someone else wanted to watch it or it was on and I walked in, I would sit and watch this with someone else. Corey says it was ugly to watch, but yeah, interesting to figure out what the fuck are they trying to say.
Mhm.
Yeah, we don't know either, and yeah, it's. I can honestly say there are enough movies that exist that are like this where you can't really say if it's a good film or not, but you can talk for a while about it. Just some of the ins and outs are like, all right, that was an interesting choice. And for me, that's enough to get me to hit play.
Okay, so I have a question for you. And I think we're going to do this every time we have an episode now of a movie. This will be our sort of wrap-up question.
Okay.
Was this movie written by AI?
There was something in this movie that made me think it was written by AI. So
I
I
think
don't
we're
know.
going to have to start asking this question a lot more.
Yeah, I
So
don't know.
especially since we scraped the barrel or the bottom of the barrel of streaming services.
Yeah, and we know
Um,
it exists.
yes, absolutely.
So
I could say that there are many things that we've reviewed that have probably been written by AI. So,
yeah, yeah, I can name at least five.
mhm.
Oh, we talking? We hitting a hot button. We know when we hit hot buttons, we start getting lags.
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
they're
how we know
trying
we're
to shut
talking
us
about some
down.
hot stuff over here, man.
Hmm. No, I don't have anything else really. Do you have anything else? I didn't think that the cinematography was all that great. I thought that the music was really tedious. I also think that Keelan's frozen again, so I'm gonna keep talking and
Hey,
hope.
all right,
There you
there we
go.
go. We're back.
Okay.
But yeah, did you hear what I said?
No, I did not. So you're gonna have to
I
repeat.
said that yes, I do believe that there are movies written by AI. I think we've covered at least five movies that could be written by AI. There are albums written by AI, so I don't doubt that this could be written by AI. A lot of the things that I usually think are written by AI seem open ended. Like there are certain things that the human eye can't overlook when you're writing, and some of these things we've been seeing lately have really made me reconsider. So that's a great question, Nick. And I do think we should ask that more often.
Yeah, definitely. I think that it's possible that this was written by AI. If I look back at stuff that we've reviewed, I can't for 100% say for sure, but there are definitely been some where I'm like, yeah, that could have just been written by a language processor, and
Yep.
at least the storyline being outlined by an AI for sure.
Yeah, the bare skeleton of it,
Yeah,
or a human wrote the skeleton and fed that into the computer and got the end result.
right. Yeah, yeah. Welcome to the
Definitely.
future.
If that's what they want to call it.
Yeah, you would
Sounds
think
like
that
the
the
past to
computers
me.
would be better at telling stories.
No, I don't
I
want them to
guess.
be any better. I want them to be just as poor as they are.
Fair enough.
Don't
Fair
look.
enough.
I got a chance out here if the computers ain't is doing this poor.
That's
Computers
true.
do this
That's true.
poor. I go put out the right manuscripts, give it to the right folk. You know what I'm talking about? Move over, Dick Wolf.
Move over. Yes. Absolutely. All right. Well, should we get to our ratings then?
Yes, let
All right.
us. Let us, not iceberg though. Um,
Romaines better.
always red leaf maybe.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give my rating first because I know yours is going to be lower than mine, and this is going to be interesting because I'm curious to how low yours is going to be.
Mm,
And I'm also curious as to if mine's is too high, but I've been feeling like that a lot lately. So I'm gonna give this a solid 4.
okay.
I think the last thing I gave a 4, I liked better than this, but I'm going to give this a 4. I liked Dana Abraham's performance. It was actually pretty good. It made me think. It gave me more to think about than the words that were being spoken. Honestly, his performance, his body language and things gave me more to think about than a lot of the words. Um, Outside of that, I'm actually giving it a point for confusion. So that's how we get to a 4. The 2 is, it's just 2 general points because it's a
Mm.
movie and I didn't hate it.
Yeah, fair enough. Interesting idea. I think I too will add a point for confusion because it's not necessarily a bad confusion, but it's not a good
Not a good
confusion
confusion.
either.
Yeah, it's not a good
So
confusion, but it's not necessarily a bad confusion.
it's just there, and I think that there's a level of confusion there for me as well, which can be good and bad. It leaves us a conversation, and we're talking about it. So I'm gonna go with I don't know. I don't want to be too harsh about this because there's some real stinkers that we've reviewed, and at least I was trying to understand what was going on here.
Mhm.
So I think I want to go like a 3.5 on this one.
Okay.
Yeah. It's
Gives us
not great. It's not great. I honestly I would watch there was that other Netflix one with Jonah Hill and Emma Stone, Psycho.
Oh, okay. Whoa, because I was
Yeah.
thinking, oh no, Easy A was just her. But okay, yeah, Psycho.
Yeah. I think that that
Did
was
you see
pretty
that one?
good. I've seen it. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I thought it was pretty good. Um, yeah. Let's see. Is Corey got some more to say here?
Yes, indeed. So Corey says, these are Corey's wrap up thoughts. So if the symbolisms of the color was clearer to me, I'd like it more.
Fair
But
point.
without putting any significance on them, and with the little snort chortle like that, the little snort chortle thing and overall grotesqueness, I give this a 2 out of 10. That is actually a solid score and a solid reasoning. I also uh, uh, feel like they could have put some significance on the lighting, but I guess we were supposed to just know, because we're hip, we're in the know, so we know what colors mean.
I think the only one they did was for the brother that he hated because his room was red.
Was red. I thought that was like
But
an orangish red too.
yeah, but I guess like, red, anger, blood.
Real
Yeah.
muddled color.
Yeah.
Um,
Nothing deeper than that, though. That's for
right.
sure.
Yeah, nothing deeper. Corey. Corey says, no points for confusion for me. I didn't enjoy it enough for ambiguity to be a plus, in my
That's fair.
opinion. And that's fair.
That's fair.
Yeah. And again, I listen, I would have liked more Kim Coates. And if Dana Abraham, I'm not sure why I liked his performance, but if I didn't actually enjoy his performance, yeah.
I would have given this movie a 5 if he had just done the Mickey laugh every time. If he had just gone, ha ha, every time, I would
That'll
have
give
been
you a
like,
whole nother
you got me,
point and
man.
a half.
I'm in.
That's a whole
I'm
point and a half right
in.
there.
That's a 1.5 right there. So take
Jeez.
notes. Take notes, people.
That's easy. Look, I'm writing it down.
Mm-hmm.
Mickey Mouse chuckle.
Mickey
All right.
Mouse chuckle when you want to have a mentally disturbed person.
All right. So that gives us that's not like a 4-1, something
A
like that.
3.8.
Three
Come
eight.
on.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
3-8-4-1, somewhere in that
3.6, 3.8.
range.
Yeah.
Um,
Somewhere around there. That's fine.
that's not bad. That's not
It's
bad.
not great. It's not great,
Not
but
great.
it's yeah.
I maintain we have given movies zeros.
Yes, we have. And
So
again, it's kind of fun to see the bottom of the barrel on the streaming services because
yeah.
you just you get to a point where you start to embrace the absurdity of all of the badness, and then it becomes kind of fun. You're just like,
Listen,
all right, let's see how terrible this one's gonna be.
when B-roll movies don't exist because everybody's getting a distribution, you just
Right.
gotta roll with the punches.
These would be considered, B tier, C tier movies. So yeah.
Yeah.
Hmm.
These would be the movies that when you go to the rental spot, they're not only on the bottom shelf, they're on the bottom shelf in the back on dust, and they're stacked on top of each other. You got to kind of flip them to see what movies are in there. You can only
They're
see
all
what you want.
dusty
Yeah,
and yeah, absolutely.
they don't even have a
That's what
cover; they
we're
just
here
have a
for,
name in black and white.
guys. So I promise you we will find a gem one of these days, and when we do, we will sing its praises every day. Once we find
We
that
found a
one
few,
good
but
movie.
nothing too major. I think I don't want to call it anywhere everything all at once. That's not
Oh
that's not a
yeah.
found gem because that
No,
was a
no.
highly advertised movie.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. But I'm hoping that we find one of these in
Mhm.
this scraping and dredging of the streaming services.
Right. I thought this would be a little more artsy. I thought this would be more artsy. Like I thought the menu could be more serious. Like this was too serious.
Mm.
Not
Yes,
enough
this
love.
was too serious, and I think that its artsy was at the sort of level of an art student.
Hmm.
To me, it really reminded me of like, oh, is this like a art student
Student film.
film, a student film?
Yep.
Because it was very edgy. It was very very reminiscent of wanting to be the Joker. I
Hmm.
just kept seeing the Joker over and over again.
And
So
be clear, I like student films because they put passion in their joint. Just they don't usually show up on Netflix.
right. Corey says,
Oh yeah, it's definitely bad. Under 5 is below average. This is true. You're giving it a relative, not bad, kind of. You guys, yeah. I
yeah,
mean,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, again, if
It's
you've seen,
relative to what we've had.
yeah,
Like, hey
if you've
Corey,
seen Paper Tigers and the
yeah,
Reminiscence and the Little
Hollow,
Things
no,
and
Empty Man.
Empty Man and
I was
yeah,
gonna say Hollow Man, but I'm like, no, that was decent.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But if you've seen all of those movies, yeah, then you're just like, those are bad, painful, bad movies. This was all right. This is okay. It's bad,
I
but
always
it's
forget
not
about
that bad.
Reminiscent
Reminiscence was so bad, dude.
because
Oh
we
my
expected
god.
it to be so good. That's
Phew.
how you know we put so much. I don't think we put so much stake on the other ones. We put a lot of stake on Reminiscent to be good because it was Hugh Jackman.
Mhm.
It was Reminiscent, and then what was the one?
The little
Denzel,
things.
Jared Leto. Was that it? The Little
The
Things.
little things, yeah.
You looked at that lineup and you was like, "Ooh, they about to smoke this," and you at the end you're like,
Right.
"Huh?
What was this? Yeah.
All right."
Yeah.
But
And go
yeah,
check out those
so
reviews if you haven't. We had a lot of
yeah,
fun on
definitely
those.
have. Yeah, we go in on those.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that is our review for the Neon Lights movie. Like it, love it or not, it is there for you on Netflix to check out with your subscription price. If you do not have Netflix, you can of course rent it on any of the other streaming services that are out there. YouTube is considered a streaming service now. Don't forget that. Speaking of which, you can head on over to YouTube and you could get to streaming right now. We have plenty of things for you to put on your queue, put in your playlist, create new playlists of, share, like, comment, tell everybody about. Going over to YouTube, Facebook, get ready, Rumble included, Spotify even. We're all over the place. We have some shows for you guys. On Tuesdays, you can start with If Numbers Could Talk. If Numbers Could Talk is hosted by me. That's right, Keelan. Over on Tuesdays at 8:30 p.m. Right now, Wednesdays. I mean, we're at the back end of a Wednesday, but you already know what's going on Wednesday. You're right here with us on the Screen Time Continuum. We'll be here for you on Wednesdays at 8:30 p.m. On Thursdays, you're going to head on over to Twitch. You're going to check out Strawberries and Coffee, where Dejan's going to be giving you some games out of the vault and some new games as he goes through them. You never know. Might be something you're playing, might be something you're interested in. You're also going to go, while you're still on Twitch, you're going to check out King_of_Ilion, which is where Mike is. Mike's going to also be giving you games that he enjoys that are either coming out of a vault, things that he would like to show you guys, walk through, and maybe even you guys can challenge them. The same you could do with Dejan, because they're just cool guys to watch play games. I never understood it, and then they started doing it, and I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Fridays, you're going to head on over to the Exofathom. Listen, if you don't know what the Exofathom is, just go and check it out. Exofathom, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, Verbal, Fridays, 8 p.m. On Saturdays, you're going to check out This Merry Moment between the hours of 10 and 12 a.m. 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. If there's a show at 12 a.m.,
Something has happened.
that's crazy. Like, that must be like a breaker 5-9 morning. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, definitely on Saturdays, you're going to check out This Merry Moment between the hours of 10 a.m. and 12 p.m. And on Sundays, you're going to be right back over here with us on the Screen Time Continuum as we round up and get near, I guess we're about two episodes now are coming up on the end of The Last of Us?
I think next episode is the last episode.
I thought so too, but somebody was
Episode
telling me, no, I think there's 10. I was like, no, I'm pretty sure there's 8.
I don't know. I'm kind of
I
bored.
think there's 8.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Who's going to die next episode?
Well, we got to see who they meet, and then we'll know.
Yeah. True.
But yeah, so Sundays, come on, check out The Last of Us with us. We'll be right there with you trying to figure out how many episodes they're giving us, because we thought 8, but I've been hearing differently. You'll know if it's the finale when they actually put out a trailer for it. We don't know. With that being said, thank you guys for hanging out with us here on the Screen Time Continuum on this wonderful day, checking out once again the review for Neon Lights. For the Screen Time Continuum, my name is Keelan.
And I'm Nick. Shout outs to Corey for chatting with us and everybody for watching. Thank you so much,
indeed.
guys.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah. Feel free to like and subscribe if you haven't already. We appreciate y'all.
Yes, indeed. Like, comment, subscribe, share, tell your friends about it. And tell your friends to tell us how they feel about this movie. Thanks.